Hey everybody, I'm Greg Sowell, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. My guest this go around is Tanya Candler. Tanya has lived a lot of lives. She was in the metal band Kitty in the 90s. I used to watch them in high school on MTV. Was a dental technician for a little while, does voice acting and coaching, is an awesome podcaster, and a very proud mama. She pulls zero punches, takes zero ducks, always speaks her mind, but she's very thoughtful, kind, and nurturing while she does it. Quite an interesting set of traits, wouldn't you say? At any rate, I hope you enjoy this chat with Tanya. Tanya Candler, thank you for joining me on the Why Am I podcast.
Hello, it's nice to see you, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be seen. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Like sometimes I just get so locked in here in this house. And like we were just talking about, you know, mask on, mask off. You never know what's going to be. I don't like wearing a mask because it makes my mustache go straight up my nose, just right up. It's the worst.
For me, I like wearing it because it feels like a seatbelt for like my face. And then I also have black ones. So I feel like I'm in like Cobra Kai or something. I feel like really badass when I go out and when I'm just like, whoosh.
Oh,
Like trying to get at me, COVID. Like,
I wear my black one with my black hoodie and my black hat. Yeah, dude.
Does it make you feel like a cool ninja or like a superhero or something?
Kind of a badass. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of want a Bane one though, like a really badass one. Like Darth Vader. I want to be like, or maybe a Jason mask. You know what? That might work because it's Friday the 13th here.
I 3D printed a Scorpion mask from like Mortal Kombat. That
Cool.
you can
Come
put a
here.
filter in the front.
Get
Yeah,
over
dude.
here.
It's pretty baller,
Awesome.
but I've never had the balls to actually get out there and wear it. I always just wear my N95 and
My
be done with
God. Oh my God. I put that on over your N95. Be like, they told me to wear a mask, so I put on this.
it.
You know what I mean? Oh my God. And if anyone pisses you off, you can just be like, get over here. Everyone will be so afraid of you. They won't know what to do. That's a pretty badass thing. Mortal Kombat is definitely like one of my favorite games ever of all time. Any iteration of Mortal Kombat, love.
Oh, I still remember finding it in the arcade for the first time and it like blowing my mind as a kid. Like this was unprecedented. I couldn't believe it.
my
It was like I was
God.
playing an R-rated movie. It's bonkers.
I know it's like all the blood and the gore and like I'm like, how is this like allowed? We had a arcade that I'd always go to in a mall that was by my house, and I'd be pumping quarters into this thing like crazy, and there was kids lining up to play it because it was so violent, and their parents would be coming to take them out of the arcade because they'd see it and they'd be like, oh wow, that's something.
Yeah, I
And
remember
it is. It's a great game.
I remember it almost like everybody just huddled around watching. Yeah, I can still remember the stink of all the teenage kids. Yeah, for sure.
And like popcorn like all over the floor of the arcade because it'd be like free. And everybody would get it and like snack on it and they'd spill it everywhere.
Oh, that's such a
Little
great
jerks.
idea. It's good for hygiene back then too. I'm sure it really boosts your immune system.
Everybody. I know, like everybody was like dipping into the same thing. Like that's why like kids all got like sick at the same time. Like then like we didn't have things like COVID because we shared popcorn and we all like licked the same drinking fountain and shit. Like
All right. Well, normally how I start this thing is you and I are standing in line, and so obviously we're waiting for our turn in Mortal Kombat. So we're lined up. There's a little bit of a queue. I know you have some British roots, so you guys love a good queue. But we're standing there. We're talking. I'm telling you who I am, and I'm really boring, so we get past that very quickly. And now it's your turn to reciprocate. So Tanya, who are you?
who am I? Well, that's who am I not? Right now, I mean, I am a mom. I'm a podcast host. I'm a voice actor or actress, however you want to phrase that. I do sound design. I'm still a working musician. And I'm a partner. I'm kind of like a jerk of all trades. I kind of do everything.
Jerk of all trades. I love that one.
Totally.
So why'd you start with mom? Why that one? Why is it the lead off?
Because truly that's my most important like thing that I do. That's my most. I never thought it would be like sitting here like at 39, because like at 20, if anyone told me like I'd have 2 kids and be like the settled down mom and whatever, I'm still like wild, but the kids don't know that side of me. This is why we have soundproof studios and things like that. But you know, this is why I podcast, so I can be wild and wacky and crazy, and you know what I mean, and then still have that fun with my kids and take that personality out to them, because to them I'm like I do voices with them. Like, so being a, doing podcast stuff and doing voiceover and doing the work that I do is really fun to be a mom with, because it's the kind of work that I can do, not the podcast so much, but like voiceover. Let's say I'm doing something for like a cartoon and I have to be wacky. I can always like practice with them. I'm like, hey guys, how do you like this voice? And they'll be like, oh my God, it's really annoying. And I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to do that one. So like, I love being a mom because it's like, you have the most fun with your kids because they're the most honest people that you can be around. Kids will tell you the truth no matter what. They're just truthful.
That only lasts for so long though.
I know.
Yeah.
We started to get in the fibbing stage. Like my youngest will be like, the dog did it. Or I'm like, I don't know about that. The dog's not even here right now. Like,
yeah. My oldest has become a very impressive liar. Like he really commits to the bit. Like up until the point where, you're about to have to like, are you sure you have appendicitis? It's like, we're going to take you to the hospital, like right up to that line, he's like, so he will like,
you got to
fully
get them.
commit.
Oh my God. If you think he has appendicitis, you got to get him to stand up on his tippy toes and then smash down as hard as he can on his ankles. And if he has appendicitis, he will be screaming his head off because the percussive pain, because they do a test for appendicitis at the hospital called a percussion test. And they want to see if you're having appendicitis or not. So if you feel like in the car on the ride there that the bumps in the car are driving your kid through the roof, your kid's probably got appendicitis, or you probably have appendicitis. So if you think you've got appendicitis, that's hilarious. You just get him to stand up on his tippy toes and tell him to jump. You'll know in about 2 seconds if he's telling the truth or not.
We haven't actually gotten that far, but I was watching the show with Graham Norton, like the host over.
Yes.
Yeah. Super famous guy. And he was talking about how
amazing.
He told a lie one time as a kid that like he was sick because he didn't want to go to school or whatever. And they took him to the doctor. The doctor was like, yeah, I think you got appendicitis. We'll take you in and, get it out the next day. And he was so committed to the lie, literally went and had his appendix out.
I mean,
and I think
really
he said that like he didn't
what?
tell his mom for like 30 years or something.
That it was a lie. Oh my God.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
You elected to have an appendectomy? Like why? Like why would you do that?
You gotta commit.
God, that is serious commitment to a lie.
Yeah, dude, he's no quitter. Come on.
Oh my God, he ain't no slouch. That's like a super lie.
I love it. I love it.
Wow, I love that too. That is hysterical. And for some reason, like that totally fits for him. Like I can see that totally fits. That goes.
Yeah. Completely bonkers, man. Pretty awesome. Well, you're like you mentioned the podcast and you mentioned being a mom, and the podcast is called 21st Century Rocker Mom, right? So you've got all of that kind of combined together. I haven't heard you talk into one. Yeah, I haven't heard you talk a whole. I haven't watched. I mean, obviously, I haven't been able to get through your entire catalog, but
no, there's a lot.
I would describe your podcast as like a stream of consciousness, which are my favorite kinds. Like just whatever's on the top of your mind, you're just sort of talking about it. But why the name Rocker Mom? Obviously, we've sort of talked about you in music a little bit, but where does that come from?
Well, I have a good friend, and we were in a band together called Candy Darlings, and her mom used to drive us. This is after I played in a band called Kitty, and so I've always kind of like played music. And I played in this band called Candy Darlings, and we were like a power punk pop band. And her mom used to drive us around all the time. And one time she made this kind of comment that was like, well, geez, I don't even feel like a soccer mom. I'm like more like a rocker mom. So I was like, oh. So, and it stuck with me for all these years. I think she must have said it when we were 18 years old. And so I was like, and I guess I'm not a soccer mom. I guess I am kind of like a rocker mom. I encourage my kids to take music lessons. We're always kind of like singing around the house. Like if they want to do something like at night, I'm like, come outside, we'll have a bonfire. We'll bring the acoustic guitar out there, grab a ukulele, like, let's go. Like you can learn. It's not like get upstairs and practice your piano. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm more laid back, let them kind of lead, do what they want. I'm like, you want to learn piano? Yes or no? If you do, good, I can teach you. Yesterday, for instance, like I taught my son's music class. Their teacher couldn't get to the class. So I was like, okay, you need a teacher for music class. I can do that. I'm like, so that's where the rocker mom kind of thing comes in, because music is still such a big part of my life, even though I'm not like touring actively at the moment or anything like that. I'm not in actively any like bands, but I'm doing a ton of like collaborations and things right now with people of all different backgrounds, whether it's other musicians or like visual artists. There's a few companies I'm doing stuff. So like the Rocker Mom kind of, I think it's like the umbrella of like everything. It just like encompasses everything that's kind of going on because there's always something going on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you come from a musical family, right?
Very much, very much. My dad taught me how to play guitar when I was like 7. I started playing music
Wow.
very young. Like I started playing my grandfather, like on my mom's side, my opa, he put an accordion in my hands when I was like 3. And of course, they're like Eastern European. So he's like, play, 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 play. So it was just like, you better learn. So I did. So I play accordion loudly, but well, not, I don't play it badly. A lot of people say I play accordion like badly. I play it very well. Like, but I'll play like the Godfather theme and I'll like the, like, I could be like sitting outside of somewhere, just like eating an entire salami if I did that, and like having an entire wheel of Parmesan cheese, just playing accordion and drinking wine, like out of one of those wicker basket, like big things. If I drank wine, it would be the perfect setting. But I play my accordion outside now, and I'm sure my neighbors like love it. And I just acquired a PA system that is rather large. So I wonder what I could do by putting my accordion through some pedals. So
Oh
we're
my
gonna find
gosh.
out about
Some
that.
like effects pedals and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
I've got
gosh.
like a tube screamer.
Well, when I think of accordion, so like I'm down here in Texas, right? A large like
Sure,
Mexican influence. So I think of Tejano bands because
absolutely.
a lot of them have
Oh,
accordions. But you're like way up north. You said Polish, so I'm thinking probably more like polka sort of music, that kind of
we
thing. Is
do
that
some
what you
polka stuff, but we do. Well, I've done a lot of like Tejano stuff too, like because I
have
like
you?
that sort of music. I really, yeah, I love it. I love because I played Spanish guitar for a long, long time.
Really?
Like I learned Spanish guitar in school because it for me, I took it because it was a bird course. This is horrible because I already knew how to play guitar. So I'm just like Spanish guitar, it's just different strings. And I'll probably learn some cool things as far as finger picking goes and learn some cool techniques. Teachers were super cool. And you got like a if you stayed in the guitar course, you got like a trip to Amsterdam. So I was like at like 16 years old, I was like, cool, this could be fun. I'm like, so I like joined the guitar like band and I learned how to play Spanish guitar and we played tons of like flamenco music, but we
Hmm.
played a lot of like Tejano stuff. And the teacher that I had would have his friends come in that were musicians, and he had this one guy who came come in on an accordion, and he was just like he blew my mind. Like he could play circles around me. The guy like should have been on fire. He was just amazing. He just wailed. I don't really like describe that often, but he like wailed on this accordion. He was just giving her. And I was impressed at 16 years old and still like I'm impressed. And I think about it, and I'm almost 40. Like he was amazing.
So when you think back to that feeling, um was it just really just being impressed? Was it a little envy there, or were you just like,
Oh
man, this
yeah. I
is
was like,
so
I wish
awesome?
I could play like that. Well, I was blown away. I was just like jaws on the floor. I don't think people my age and in my class like appreciated it as much as I did because other people were just like talking or whatever. But I was sitting there like gobsmacked
Right.
because he was so good. I'm just like, how like I'm thinking to myself, like my teacher was always like, what did you learn? What did you wonder? You know what I mean? So I'm like, I wonder how many hours a day this guy
Right.
practices like to be that good. And I'm like, I wonder if I'll ever get to that like level of ability, like thinking like that. And I'm sure like the kids in my class were not wondering that. They're probably like, I wonder when recess is so I can go out and smoke a joint. Like, this is high school, you know what I mean? The kids wanted to be out in the smoke pit smoking because it was like super socially acceptable then. It was like so cool to smoke.
Right.
And so everybody did. Now all the kids are like vaping juices and stuff. So I don't know what they do. Like, I see clouds everywhere.
The little pocket fog machines. So when you
Well, we're
were
in Canada, so marijuana is like well in my province at least, it's legal in Ontario. So
uh,
we have like all kinds of pot shops where you can just go buy it without a medical license. And like I'm like, oh my God, like after COVID like is like over, like I want to go see what these look like. What do they look like?
yeah, that's so weird to hear you say after COVID because COVID never happened here in Texas. We were like the
I
one state where
know.
we just we just refused to believe that it existed. One or the other, you know.
I don't know which one happened or
Yeah.
didn't happen. I'm not sure. Like
Yeah.
things are bigger in Texas. That's all I know.
Yeah, we naturally have social distance. Everybody's just so spread out, you know. It's
Everyone just exactly. You have that distance. You have that land mass. So it's all good. I have friends from Texas that have been absolutely like fine, and they've been like great through this whole thing. But we've been bad here for cases. So I'm just like, ugh. Eventually, you know what? I think everybody's going to get it. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's such a virulent thing, whether you believe in it or, or not. It's like saying, you're going to survive the winter without getting a cold. You probably won't. Like you're going to
Yeah.
get a cold.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's going to happen. It's just the way immunity works.
Yeah. I had assumed, I mean, I 100% knew I was going to get it. I still haven't, but I have 2 kids in public
Good.
school. So I was like,
And that's where it comes from.
we're
That's where
going to get
most
it.
people I know have got it from. Yeah.
Somehow we didn't. I don't know. It's
You
bizarre.
just super like that's super lucky. Like most of my friends who have got it from their kids just coming home from school. And we've had to like close schools here because it's been so rampant, which is nuts. I'm just like, that's crazy. I'm like, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. It's like, okay, now your kid's not going to school anymore, and they're going on online schooling, and the school is closed because the cases are rampant in the school. I'm like, wow, that is something I never expected to see in my lifetime.
Hmm. Yeah, it was, I mean, for 1 year, our kids did the online school thing. And my oldest, it was his freshman
Yes.
year in high school that he did online.
Ooh,
And man,
that's hard.
that was rough. It was, I mean,
Frig.
it was so like just mentally rough on both of them, my younger and my older, and all that
Well, it's
stuff.
mentally rough on parents too, because
Yeah,
you're in
everybody.
charge of everything. My son is fully remote because, like I said, he's immune compromised. So going to school for him is a bad idea. Like if he gets COVID, even though he's vaccinated, if he gets COVID, it could be trouble, big time
Hmm.
trouble. And we had COVID before, like vaccines, before everything like shut down here in Canada. We got COVID when everything first shut down. And I tell you, if I would have had a gun in the house, I would have shot myself.
Oh my
It
God.
was horrible. I still can't taste. I can't
Whoa.
smell.
Whoa.
Like it's crazy. Like, well, I can taste, but like I've lost taste and I've lost smell. Like I'm like smell blind now. It's fucking ridiculous.
That's wild,
And
dude.
I've talked to other people. They're like, yeah, I had the same experience. I'm like, this is effed up. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like, I didn't think it was. I'm like, it hasn't happened obviously since we've had like vaccines and masking and social distancing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But oh my God, eventually, like I say, it's going to happen whether you're vaccinated or not. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. 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 I've already resigned myself to it and made peace with
Yeah,
it. I
I have to.
welcome my
I
virus
have to.
overlords. So
If they come, and then we'll build up some immunity to it in the body.
yeah. Yeah. We'll do it when we do it. Anyway,
Exactly.
let's circle back to you because I want to hear about you a little bit more. So
Sure.
I mean, you said you basically had an instrument. I'm sure as soon as you were born, they put a rattle in your hand and you were playing backup in the band.
Oh
But
yeah.
from an early age, did you know that like you were going to be in music? Like this is going to be me.
Oh yeah, big time. Even being like really like small, the music my dad introduced me to, like listening to music, like listening to just like records with him on the floor, like 45s and stuff. I was like, oh, like how did like these people make money doing this? Like this is what I want to do. I want to do this. Like, how can I do this? You know what I mean? And it was always like the how. So I had a guitar from like a very young age. I just had some like beat old guitar. And then when I was 7, my dad was like, here's an SG. Like you need to learn how to play this. I'm just like, okay. It was like this big ass guitar, and I was this tiny little 7-year-old. So I had to play this giant guitar. So he showed me like my dad showed me basic chords and things. He showed me some noodling around and stuff, and he'd jam with me, and we'd sit and we'd hang, we'd jam together. He had a really cool Ibanez, and it was like a custom Ibanez. And I remember it had like a pearl, a bunch of flowers up the headstock. It was beautiful. So we'd sit around, we'd jam together, and I thought like this is what I want to do. My dad was a carpenter by trade, but like he was always like playing music like that. And anytime he had a chance to play, he'd play. And I'd always be like, Dad, like you're so good. Like why don't you do this professionally? I think he was like he was a little bit shy. He was a little bit like
Mm,
embarrassed because like my dad's passed now, and even with his passing, I've only seen him play, and he only played with me like probably 20 or 30, times in my life because he just was kind of more private about that stuff, but he loved to sing. And so I think I got that like big time from him. And my mom is super musical too, but she's more of like a disco queen sort of lady. She and her, well, not now. Oh my God, sorry, mom, you're going under the bus. Not now, but in her heyday, she was like staying alive. She was like watching like Saturday Night Fever. She knows all like the moves and everything like that. Like I want her to do them like for my kids, but like I don't think they like view her like that.
mm.
They just see her as this old like babushka like lady. Like they see she's fucking Baba Yaga to them. Like you know what I mean? She's just like they're like, oh my God. Like I'll show them a picture. I'm like, do you know who this is? They'll be like, who is it? I'm like, that's Oma, because they call her Oma. That's the name they call her. They're like, no, it isn't. I'm like, yes, it is. They're like, no, that's you. I'm like, no, no, that's Oma. How is she so young? I'm like, well, age and stuff happens. But I did grow up like everybody is musical in my family. Like my uncle, like one of my uncles is been in musical theater his whole life. So definitely grew up around like with like a piano always around. Everybody was always kind of like singing, or someone always like I always remember there was always someone with a guitar. Always music was like present, whether it was playing like in the background or it was really present in the foreground. Like I'd just be lying on the floor, like I say, listening to vinyls with my dad, like with the lights off and it would be like raining. We'd be like lying on the living room floor on the carpet, listening to his vinyl collection, listening to like Klaatu or like Frank Zappa or Deep Purple or something. Like I'm like 6 or 7, you know?
It sounded like you
But
bonded with
that,
your dad through music a lot, huh?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Music was like our like that was our thing. Like I remember when like my dad was sober for my dad drank a lot like when I was a young kid,
Hmm.
but he got sober for the last over like 10 years and I haven't drank in years, but I remember when we both did drink. I haven't drank since before kids. Oh my God, it's been so long. But but when I did drink, him and I would call each other on the phone because he lived kind of far away. We'd call each other on the phone and we totally like tears in my beer with each other and like play songs for each other over the phone and like get drunk and like play like jukebox. So like I have the fondest memories of him like that, even though we couldn't hang out and be together because he was far away at the time or like we were both drinking. So obviously no one could drive. I'd be like destroying Caesars and his drink of choice was beers. He'd be having beers because he was out hot working like on a construction day or he'd be doing because he like my dad built houses, like I say, he was a carpenter. So he'd always be doing something really physical and he'd always be really hot. He didn't mind the heat, but he'd always want like a nice cold beer. But for the night, like the last like 10 years, it was always like a club soda with lime or something like that. And he'd like crush like 10 cans of them. He'd just be like, oh, I just sweat it all out. I'm like, Dad, you need some Gatorade or something. Like you need to like replenish your electrolytes.
Yeah, that's that
You're
old
sweating more than you're
generation.
drinking.
Yeah, man, those guys were wild.
Totally. No
So do you think
sunscreen, like none of that.
do you think he so like because I've seen this before and I'm curious like
Sure.
that immigrant mentality, like would you come in,
Yes.
it's like you have to work, you have to put your head down and work. So even if you are talented at music, you're talented at this sort of art thing, that's not for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just have to put your head down and work. Do you
Nope.
think that was kind of part of the reason he didn't really try and get into music?
Big time too, like because he was a self-made guy, like big
Mm.
time. Like my mom worked at jobs, like she had like a lot of like different part-time jobs. She worked at like the grocery store, she worked like she worked in fashion a lot, she sold clothes, she worked at like clothing stores, she worked at the mall for a bit. Like she needed a part-time job to keep her busy. She didn't have to work, but my dad was like, it's good for your mental health. Like, go have a job, have something for you, you know what I mean, so
Yeah,
you can
it's
do
awesome.
something for yourself. So my dad though, like his dad was a self-made guy. He'd always like he came over from England. Like my dad came over from England when he was 6. So they all came over from England when my dad was 6. And my pop, like that's my dad's dad, he had to obviously establish a business here because he didn't get a job right away. And so my dad like saw that you could make something of yourself by just having enough gumption and having enough, kind of go to and get up and go to do it. Like he said he had this one friend that my dad started working for Fords, and everybody knows Ford cars. He started working for Ford Motor Company was when he was young, like 17, 18, and he had a best friend who was kind of a lazy shit. And so my dad had the early shift at Ford. And after my dad passed away, which is just like recently in February, I've been talking to a lot of my dad's old buddies and stuff like that. And so I was talking to one of his friends, and his friend said to me, your dad used to call me, he'd call my mom up, and he'd say, where's I don't want to say the guy's name. He's there, where's so and so? And he'd say, hey, mom, where's so and so? And she'd say, oh, well, he's sleeping. He'd be like, what? He'd go wake him up. And so my dad would say, good morning, ugly. He's like, if I have to be up at 6 o'clock and work, so do you. And so that's how he'd wake this guy up. He's like, your dad had so much initiative. He'd work 6 to 6 at the Ford Motor Company, and then he'd come home and he'd do something on the side, or he'd go and he worked at a printing company too for friends of the family, and they did martial arts on the side, and he was like lifting weights and stuff like that when he was young. So he'd always be doing something. So we're
Mm.
just Candlers are busy people.
High
We
energy.
make the work for ourselves.
Yeah,
Yes.
high energy
Yeah.
is a good way of describing it. My
Big
goodness.
time.
So
Put it in a
you
bottle and sell it.
you always knew you were going to be into music. And I mean, when did you start like putting a band together, start playing music and stuff like that? At what age was that?
Being pretty young, because I started like collaborating with other people in my class. Like when I was a kid, I found like another girl who really liked the Beatles when I was like in grade like 6 or 7. So I was like, oh, cool, someone to play with. Because before that, I never like jammed with anyone before.
Hmm.
So around like grade 6 or 7, I was playing with her with the Beatles. And then I started jamming with these guys because I kind of got along better with men than I did with women. There was just no cattiness, there was no drama, there was no bullshit. They just wanted to jam. So I was like, cool. So I went and started playing bass with them, and we started playing a lot of Nirvana and Hole and started grunge stuff. And we played like a talent show. And I remember playing the song Miss World and by Hole. And the song has the lyric "Kill Me Pills" in it. And I think I was like in grade 7. Well, my teacher like she wanted a lyric sheet. And she's like, Tanya, I remember she came up to me before the talent show and she's like, this says "Kill Me Pills." I'm like, I realize that. Do you plan on singing this? I'm like, I do plan on singing this. Tanya, this talent show is kind of, for everybody, like under the age group. Do you think you could change it to something else that rhymes? So I'm like, what am I going to change this to? And it's like 5 minutes before I have to go on. I'm like, this is so unprofessional. I can't do this. Like, even at the time, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm just waiting in the wings. It's like a school talent show. But here's Karen waiting in the wings, having to change the lyrics to Miss World. What would Courtney Love do? So I changed "Kill Me Pills" to "Thrill Me Jill," which probably was worse. And so I changed it to "Thrill Me Jill," just like the Doors changed "Light My Fire" to like Ed Sullivan wanted them to change it, and they changed it, but they changed it to "Bite My Wire." They just really wanted to piss off Ed Sullivan. They wanted to say something on television that they weren't allowed to say.
Hmm.
So I kind of did the same thing to the t-shirt. So I just said "Thrill Me Jill." I was like, there, I changed it. It rhymed. Are you happy? She was not.
Well, how did the talent
But
show
these
go?
guys were rad to play with. Oh, talent show went great. We won. We won. We did great. It was so much fun. I think we won like a pizza party at like Pizza Hut or something like that. And it was like the pizza
Awesome.
buffet with like the dessert pizza and like all the ice cream you could have and everything. It was
Amazing.
badass. For grade 7, it was the bomb. I was like, this is awesome. All
Did
the
it feel
pizza you
like
can and jugs of
validation?
pop. Oh, it felt like huge validation. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it felt great. It felt nice to like be out of the house and like out of the basement and just like having my parents listening to my noise.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Someone else can deal with it.
and there's this huge group of people that say, yes, you are good at this. You are awesome, right?
But at that point, like that's where I started to be like, whew, shit, I'm nervous now. Like I
Really?
say,
That's where
like
the
I
nerves
have a
came
great
in.
energy, but that's where the nerves came in early because like being really small, like I love to perform. Like I'd be in the mall, I'd stand up on the middle of something. My mom would tell me this. And I'm like, where's this picture from? Why do I have all these balloons? Like there's a picture of me and I've got like 50 big blue balloons. I'm like, where'd this come from? And she's like, oh, you were in the mall and you're about 4 or 5 and you just decided to stand up on the middle of a table and just start singing a show for everyone. So there was a guy with balloons because it was like the 80s.
Yeah,
Because of course there was a guy with fucking balloons
of
just
course.
standing there.
Yeah.
Like was curious George and the man with the yellow hat there too.
Yeah.
Amazing. So she's like, well, this guy thought your voice was so fun, and you should be on Star Search, he said, and then he just gave you this bunch of balloons. My mom tells the story so funny. So so it's cute. So she built me up like from an early age too. Like, Tinny, you can sing and you can perform and you kind of like to do this, but at the same time, I have that part of my dad that of me that it can get really private at times.
Hmm.
And like anytime I play a show, still to this day, I throw up.
Do
If
you
it's a
really?
music show, oh yeah, it's throw up central. I'm like, whoa, we're standing. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, oh yeah, I throw up because of nerves. And I take my glasses off when I play because I don't want to make eye contact with anybody
Oh my gosh.
because I'm so nervous.
You're just playing to a big blurry lump of colors. I get you.
Yeah, I just play to this big like Technicolor blob. It's actually like pretty cool. It's like a Fish concert, kind of like without the drugs. Like it's just really cool. So like I take the glasses off and things get then I get into the groove a little bit more, and it's great. I like that kind of thing because the last time I played like a live show I played with Kitty actually for a reunion. I think it was about 2000. Yeah, it was 2017 because I was 6 months pregnant the last
Wow.
show that I played. And it was a freaking heavy metal show. So you can imagine what my daughter is like at 4 years old. She's more heavy metal than anyone I've ever met.
Because of that experience.
Oh, she's like Norwegian death metal, like church burning metal. She's crazy. I love her. I like her energy is she is like she is like a Carolina Reaper pepper. She's amazing. I honestly think she's gonna run a country one day.
Yeah. It's so surreal for me to talk to you because I remember like in high school, I would do this thing called like half days, and then I would go to like college the other half the day. So I would go to like two
Oh, cool.
classes in the morning. I would start at like 7 a.m. And so I was like out
Mm-hmm.
really early. So then I would get home and I would like fart around, eat lunch and stuff. And I would always turn on MTV. And
Yeah.
back then they played like a lot of rock music, like right there. And I still remember watching your ass on the TV, like watching the Kitty music videos. Like it is so bizarre
That's
to think
hilarious.
here I am. And that was the Spit album, right? Is that what it was called?
It's like I'm like, I played on that album. That's crazy. I'm
Yes,
like,
dude. It's bonkers. Yeah, I was watching you like probably every
oh
morning
my God.
before I went to college. And so it's so strange to think here I am talking to you. It's like
Are you
so
getting
strange.
angry? Like, were you getting angry listening to Kitty? Like, was it that
No,
like
man.
teenage angst coming out now?
No, no, no. I listen to all kinds of stuff. Like I was listening to,
So do
was
I.
this the Kitty, a lot of rocket stuff. I would listen to
Yeah.
Prodigy, Fat of the Land. That record
Ah,
was
that was a great album.
bumping
That
back
was a
then.
great album.
Yeah, there's a
That's
lot
that
of great
album.
music back then.
That album still like most of those albums. I'm just gonna say it. Most of those albums still hold up. And when I see like the younger generation, I'm gonna say this. I see them on TikTok because for some reason the younger generation on TikTok likes me for some reason,
I know,
and
dude. You're bonkers on there.
it's weird. Oh, I'm crazy on TikTok and they love it, right? So, but they are listening to like what we grew up on. They're all like wearing Nirvana shirts and they're getting whole shirts. Like the other day, someone tagged me in a video. They're like, oh, my Kitty shirt arrived. And they were so excited. I was just like, hooray. And I was like, oh, did you buy that from Hot Topic? Oh, they treat their employees like shit. Oh, I'm like, but I'm so happy that your shirt came.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I hope
so
you don't work at Hot Topic.
it was weird. Like when I was like researching, obviously, I'm typing your name in Google and I'm variations and doing all this stuff. And yeah, it's
Sure.
like I'm finding a lot of like young kids like tagging you and stuff. And it's like
It's funny.
that's gotta be wild,
It's
right?
weird. It's
Yeah.
weird. It's wild, but it's weird. It's
All these
weird because I'm
people
just
like
like,
finding you.
I'm old enough to be your teen mom. Like seriously. If I would have been like a huge like sexually active child young. Like rock and roll saved me. Like seriously, like that I didn't lose my virginity until I was like 19 years old. Thank you, music. Like I didn't go. I was there for all of like the drugs and the rock and roll and the drinking. I was not so much there for the sex. I wasn't there for the sex. Like I didn't have the sex. I wasn't interested in it. I was too busy, and all of us chicks were too busy working, like for lack
Mm.
of a better word, because like you're so young, and all of a sudden like you're in a band, and then like you're playing in your basement one day, and then like the next day someone's like, "We want to make you famous," and you're just like, oh, "Baloney!
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
believe that."
well, I mean, you guys were like putting in the work, right? You had done like a
Very
lot
much.
of you had done a lot of shows, a lot of gigs before you really like exploded, right?
Absolutely. We did a lot of shows and a lot of self promotion and a lot of work and a lot of like putting out our own albums and things like that. We shopped it. And then we ended up at Canadian Music Week, which was like an industry festival that it's almost like South by Southwest or like South by Southeast or North by Northeast, which we have here. Just an industry fest where you get a bunch of, skirts and suits sitting in a room and they want to sign you or they don't want to sign you. Cause those were the, back in the day where you'd get big record
That's
contracts.
how it worked. Yeah.
Nobody does that anymore. Everybody is it's bedroom and basement recordings now, which for me is great. I like it a lot. There are some studios that I like to record with specifically, but back then it was the days of, big record contracts. So that's what you're after. You're after the big fish. And
Mm.
we got scouted by a gentleman by the name of Jason Weiner. He kind of came at us. He had this like big, like Jamiroquai, like fuzzy hat on. And I was like, so of course we're like assholes at the time. We're like 15, 16, 14. But I'm like, let's steal this guy's hat.
Oh
Like,
my
so
God.
of course, like we did. This poor guy, he's probably like in his like late 20s. He's probably like, oh my God, these teenage girls are gonna get me fucking arrested. So he came to see our show and he was just like, oh, hey, Kitty. Like, I really like what you're doing, man. Like, do you guys want to come up to like my hotel room? Like, and of course, like we were with our parents. So us and our parents went up to his hotel room and we had like a call with their boss at NG Records, which who we signed with. It was NG and Artemis. It was like a merger record label. So we had like a call with like a good call with them. And I tried to like raid his like mini fridge for like booze, but he was like, "Oh my God, you're 16. Get the hell out of here. Like, what are you doing?" Like, I think I was probably 15. I was about 15. Yeah, even younger, even better. And he was just like, "No." And I was just like, so we're talking to his boss, and like a few weeks later, it's seemingly like we were in New York and things just like blew up. And that was even more scary
That's
because
wild.
people really started to like take notice and like know who we were. And that anonymity had like gone out the window. Even like going to school was like really weird. Really
I
weird.
bet. Well, I mean, I'm looking at you with your red eyebrows and your bright red hair and your
Sure.
flamboyant shirt. So I'm assuming you weren't one of the kids that fit in at school, right?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
I wore
so,
tiara to school. I had bright pink hair, or I'd wear like a slip with like fishnets underneath
oh
it.
my
I'd look like I was
gosh.
going to bed with someone. Like I look like Courtney Love on stage. I looked like I should have been standing on the. My mom's like, I'd pack it in my backpack because like if my mom saw me, she'd think I was going to go stand on the corner. She wouldn't think that I was going to school. She'd think I was like hustling and
Mm.
hawking. So she'd think something was bad was going on. So I had to like put those in my like school bag and like change into my whore clothes like when I got to school.
Oh my gosh, you are
And then
so my people.
I'd have to like wipe off the paint before I'd come home. Like not so much like the lipstick and everything like that, but
Yeah.
the masks we wear. I'd be
All
like,
right.
I guess I can't have slut written on my arm and eyeliner when I come home with this whole riot girl face. My mom's gonna kill me.
So already at school, you weren't necessarily in the in crowd, one of the popular people.
No.
Then all of a sudden, you are just, I mean, you're like a global phenomenon. I can
All
only
of a sudden everyone's like,
imagine.
"Oh, we want
Yeah.
to be your friend." And immediately like all like the guys who are like a little bit more like jockey, all the football players like want to sleep with you because like you're in a band. So automatically they're like, "You're wild. You must be wild." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm wild like on the bass and I'll probably swing it around 360 and hit you in the head with it.
Golly, you really
Stay
had a chip on
away
your
from me."
shoulder at that age, huh?
Oh, I did because these are people that like made fun of me, and then now they're just
Right.
like, "Hey, let's be best friends." I'm like, "Hey, let's not like be best friends. I'll just be best friends with the people I was friends with before this." And like again, we're still friends to this day. Like
Mm.
I've had the same group of friends since like public school and high school. Of course, like I make new friends along the way, which is amazing. But I've had that same group of friends, like the girls and Kitty, everyone that I've been in a band with, we're still all buds. Like we're still all friends. All those relationships, they're still good, solid relationships. Even if we're far away from each other, we're still really tight, which is nice.
But do you feel like that experience like really made you kind of put your walls up around you, like be very protective of kind of who you let in that circle?
Definitely. Definitely. I
Yeah.
definitely look at things more closely. Like even now, I look at things more closely than I did too. I started getting like cautious then. But I mean, like
Mm.
you're cautious as much as you are as when you're a teenager. You trust a little bit too much and you are a little bit green and you're naive and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And for sure, there are things you do not do in the record industry and like guilty, I've done them. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, if I could write a whole book on like shit not to do, I could do that. Like, no problem. Like, but there, I could write a whole book on shit to do. You know what I mean? Don't fucking get drunk. Don't do drugs. Don't sleep around. Like, focus on your fucking career. Like,
Yeah.
you want it? You better work, bitch. Like, seriously, like Brittany
Brittany
said,
had it right.
you better work, bitch. She had it right the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at myself and I think really I am like every success I have is because I failed
Yes,
and failed and failed until it finally worked. Right. So I
absolutely.
like even if
You
somebody
just
told
try
me
it
the
a
right way
different
of doing
way.
it, like would anybody have been able to give you any like advice that you would have taken back then, or you just had to do it yourself?
No, I was like a doer. Like I at that point,
Yeah.
I was not at that age, I was not a thinker. I was a doer. And now that I'm like old and shit, now I'm a thinker and a doer. And it's good to be a thinker, like first and foremost, be that thinker. Like that's something totally like to drive home. And I think that's become ingrained in who I am and ingrained in my psychology now because of that is to be not just a doer, don't just act and like or react. You got to
Right.
like respond, you got to respond, man. You got to be a thinker. So like find out logical ways around things. Don't always look at things. At that age, I looked at things as like problems. And now at this age, I look at like, what's the solution? Like, how can we come up with a
Mm.
solution for this? I think it's like a different way of looking things through different eyes, not like parent eyes, older eyes. I find now that my dad's passed away, I look at a lot of things almost like through his eyes, how
Mm.
he would see things. Like he'd always tell me, like, it's your parents' job, to raise you to be able to live without them.
Mm.
And if they haven't done a good job, like it's like you'll know, you know what I mean? And my dad did. I wasn't ready to live without him this young because my dad died very unexpectedly and very under very suspicious circumstances that I'm honestly completely transparent. I'm not sure what they are. My dad had an autopsy done and we still don't know the results, but like things are delayed here in Canada again because of like COVID. So I think seeing things even through my dad's eyes, the way he would kind of see things has really changed my personality and the way I do react, not anymore to things, the way I respond to things. And now I'm more of a problem solver. And like I say, I'm very cerebral as a thinker. I'm always in that head.
Do you think having kids changed that a lot for you? Because I know it did for me. Like the idea of present the behavior you want your kids to emulate, right? It's like
Absolutely.
sometimes it is so effing tough to do that. To like
Oh yeah, you just got to
do
put
the
on
right
that
thing,
parent hat like
do the right thing.
so hard.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, it is, and it is it's absolutely a challenge, and that's the whole challenge of being a parent. And yes, like being a parent absolutely changed that for me because it's like what they observe, like you're like a mirror for them, and
Hmm.
they're like little sponges at that age, and they just like soak, because my kids are all under 10, so I have two kids and they're under 10, and so you, as you know, with your kids being a little bit older, they soak it up fast. And as you say, they're going to emulate what they see. You're a little mirror to them. What you put out, like what's going to happen with the mirror is you're going to get
Yeah.
back what you give.
And you don't get to
And
pick which things they're going to emulate because they will
mm-mm.
pick all of your least favorite traits to emulate.
Well, it's crazy because like my son, for instance, he picks like my calmness. Like he is like me when it comes to like meditating and stuff like that. But then I do have a duality, like I have a side, of course, because I'm fucking female. I have a temper, fiery ass. Everyone knows I have a temper. I have a bit of a temper, and like so, my daughter was just like born with a temper. She never even saw a temper until she was she just had one. She was just born with one. She picked her favorite person, who is her dad, as soon as she was born. As soon as you'd hand her to me, unless she was nursing, she'd be like, "Ah!" I'm like, oh my God, what happened here? Everyone's like, it's because you played a show with her while you were 6 months pregnant and it was metal. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I knew it. That's why she's got such that temper. She got like, that's why I say she's so heavy metal. So she got that part of me that like it's the part that you like work on the most. So she has like a really explosive temper, but she's 4, right? So
Yeah.
she's got a super explosive temper, but she's working on it. Like now I've gotten to the point where I'm almost 40. I don't have time for super explosive temper.
Mm.
So now
Well,
I just go meditate, take a walk.
I've noticed, and this, I don't know, this might just be biased, but I've noticed it seems like women can get away a little bit more with having explosive temper versus men. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think it's true, and I think it's unacceptable. I think it's completely true, and I think it's socially unacceptable, especially in this day and age. I don't think any human should
Yeah.
be able to get away with having an explosive temper and like be like, how can like a female goes off or a male goes off, someone's going to be deemed as violent. It's probably going to be the gentleman in the situation, and that sucks to be just like totally like listed as that and labeled.
Yeah.
That blows, and I think that's not fair, and I completely agree. Like even like I look at what's going on with like Johnny Depp and like in court right now, and I feel so bad for him. Everyone's like, oh well, Amber Heard was clearly his midlife crisis. I'm like, oh my God, he's like a guy who's being abused. Why don't you just listen to him
Yeah.
for like 2 seconds? She
Yeah.
shit on his pillow. He did. Nobody fucking asks for that shit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
literally, nobody asks for that.
Well, I mean, yeah, like
Like,
you said, a human is a human, right? And we all have
exactly.
thoughts, feelings, emotions, wants, desires, and just because you're one gender or the other, no matter which one it happens to be, or anything in between, doesn't give you the right to be unkind.
Whatever you
else.
identify as, you can't be walking around being an anger ball. That's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Not in this world, at least. Not in my world. I don't want to live in an angry world.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, I was particularly careful with my kids about that, like, being calm and not letting. I mean, my youngest is definitely fiery. He's a lot like his mom, which is kind of akin to what you were saying.
Not surprising,
but it's something we've always been working on, and he's getting so much better at. And like my oldest, it's just now kind of, he's sort of realizing why that's so important. So he is 6'5" and like 280 pounds. And so he would tend to, I'm 6'3" and my wife's like 6 foot, and my 13-year-old is 6'2". So we're like really big people, right? So it's like one time we were at a family picnic, and I've got somebody in my family that's like 5'5", and he comes in hot on a discussion, and I'm like, you got to realize you are enormous. You know what I mean? It's like, you weren't angry. You're just, he gets passionate when he's like talking about stuff sometimes. It's like, so I was like,
what wins? Does crazy beat big?
Well, it's like, it's all about
10.
It's all about perception, right? It's like, if you have a monster coming at you hot, it's scary. And then, like, if you've got somebody who's 4'10" coming at you hot, it's less intimidating.
It's like really funny. Like when I'm mad, like sometimes my kids like laugh. I'm like, if you guys don't listen, I'm gonna get mad. They're just like, yeah, go ahead. And they like laugh at me. Just like, go ahead, get mad, lady. And then they just like laugh and leave the room because they know it's not gonna happen. It's like, temper has no time here. It's just, I don't have time for it. Kids don't need to be like, I don't think they need to be exposed to like yelling and screaming and stuff like that. I think with kids, when they hear your temper, I don't think they hear like your words. I think all they hear is volume. And I don't think it's productive for kids. So there's no point in like blowing up at your kids. It's not gonna do anything except make them just as equally explosive.
Yeah.
That's just me.
That loud volume, it makes them feel away, right? It doesn't help them understand your point anymore. It just makes them feel away. And so it's
exactly
to your point,
they get disconnected.
It's not useful.
They get disconnected. They can't even do like anything like emotionally that's disconnecting to a child. I mean, even that's emotionally disconnecting to an adult because they're so like distracted. Like you say, they almost get called away. They're just like, oh, you yelled at me. That's all I can focus on,
Yeah, especially people
you said
that have kind of a spicy personality. They tend to like shut down whenever they're in those situations. So
if someone yells at me, I just start crying.
Oh my God.
Anytime, like, no, literally, even at school, if a teacher, like, I'd have a few teachers that were just kind of yelly, just generally, they just yelled at everyone or just talked really loud. Kind of mean. I had a teacher with a whistle. She was kind of a real bitch. She'd always be blowing it loud. But then I had one that was a yeller, and she loved to yell. And she'd yell at me, and I'd just start, like, she'd yell her ass off, and I'd just start crying. Like the only thing I could do to get her to stop was just like turn into a puddle of tears because I didn't like it. And as a kid, I don't know if it's just being so like musically sensitive and like with my ears and just the volume was so much because even now, like these days, if a fire truck's like screaming down my street, I live on a really quiet street. If a fire truck's screaming down my street, like it bothers me like physically. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. So even like a teacher like screaming at me as a kid, it was just such a weird concept to me to have like an adult just like screaming that it scared the shit out of me. I'd come out of school, my parents would be like, what happened? I'd be like, Miss so-and-so yelled at me. And they'd just be like, my parents would be like, into the school. We're not into that. Like, we don't do that shit. No, thank you.
Overwhelmed sometimes? Do you try and find a quiet place? Is that something you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have like, what's great because like our house is basically like a nature preserve. Oh my God. I just go outside and just hang out with the chipmunks and the birds, or I go sit by the pond and play ukulele or something. Or my office, I have my piano there and I'll just sit down and play piano, or I'll play ukulele or guitar with the kids if I'm feeling like amped up. And then they're like happy little faces and they're like singing because they're like seriously like Billie Eilish and Phineas. They're like making up their own songs and they're like 4 and 7. It's so cute. And I'll just play guitar for them and I'm just like the background person and I just like wait to see what they're going to sing and it's so exciting to see what they come up with and they're so creative and they're so like out of their out of their bodies and out of themselves. They don't care what anyone thinks, and they're just letting their freak flag fly and singing whatever they want with no shame, no nothing. And it's great to see like that creativity. So that is something like if I'm feeling like amped up or upset about something, that's like what I call like a bucket filler that like fills my bucket like all the way to the top. There's like bucket dippers, like people that try to steal your sunshine, and there's like bucket fillers, and that's a bucket filling activity if I do say so myself.
It sounds like it. You know, your whole everything, your demeanor, your face changed when you were talking about that. Do you think you kind of channel your dad when you're having those moments with your kids?
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
I'm
you're
wearing a
being
shirt
able
for
to
crying out loud. Like,
close that circle?
oh yeah, my dad did that a lot with us when we were kids. It was
Yeah.
a lot of like sing-songy stuff, and he'd do like hilarious things like swinging us around in pillowcases.
Amazing.
or he'd like or he'd do something like total dad stuff. He'd like fart like hard. My dad couldn't smell. He had nasal polyps really bad, so he couldn't smell at all. So this is like when you're a teenager and you're smoking pot, you're never getting caught.
Oh my
But
gosh.
so like thank God and bless the beast. But he couldn't smell. So when we were small, to tick us off, he'd fart like and then lock us in the bathroom with the fart. And then we couldn't get out. It'd be
Amazing.
like something while like my mom was at like work. It's just like something so like dad joke, like a dad would do. And then to me, it's just like so funny. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could do that to my kids. I'm gonna fart and leave them in the bathroom. But then I don't want to like lock them in a room because it's like 2022 and you can't lock your kids in a room anymore with anything. My mom locked me in a room with a fart. That's it. Child services. It's over.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's get wild. Oh, where are the fun times when you just light abuse? Not heavy, just light abuse.
I know, just a little light slam every now and then. Mrs. Doubtfire style. Like
Oh my gosh, that's cool. What does your partner? Does he do the musical stuff with the kids and all that as well?
he is Rob's totally musical. He does it like he is the movie guy. Obviously, he makes movies and television shows and he produces things like that. And he's like action figure dude, but he is totally like guitar ukulele dad. So he loves to like sit down with a guitar and I call him cottage dad because like in the summer, like he's like never wearing shoes, just always in shorts. He's always like got a guitar or ukulele in his hand. He's always outside. We both don't drink, so he's just like either got a can of club soda or like lately we've been on like a Fresca kick.
Hmm.
It's been giving me a headache, but I like Fresca a lot. Or I'll have like a Verner's or something. Like it's like really strong ginger beer. So like I'll have like a ginger beer, just get calms my tummy, and it's nice and it's nice cold. So we'll be walking around with one of those, and one of us has an instrument in our hands pretty much at all times, and a dog. We also have a dog that's always with us as well.
Hmm. Are your kids going to be musicians when they grow up?
I don't think it'll be whatever they want to be. I kind of like let them in terms of that. Like my son wants to. He just published a comic book actually.
Whoa.
So I think he wants to do some like illustrate. He says he wants to be a comic book maker and a video game developer. So I'm like, go for it. But he also loves music. Like I'll be playing something like super obscure, like Ron Sexsmith, which is like a Canadian artist that like not a lot of people know about, but he's absolutely fantastic. He's been playing since, oh God, I've got the first time I saw him, I was 15 years old. He's still playing now. He's in his 60s. He's amazing. He's like half man, half melody. I feel like he's one of those really underappreciated musicians. Like Elvis Costello's praised him, Paul McCartney's praised him.
Oh wow.
For some reason, the guy's just never broke like huge. He has a very small but very loyal fan base. And I'll be listening to something like that, super obscure, or I'll be listening to the Beatles or something. And I'll just say to my son, I'll be like, oh, which Beatles singing this? He'll be like, oh, that's Paul for sure. Like, listen to that song. It's way poppier. And I'm like, and I'll be like, which song is this? He'll be like, oh, that's John Lennon. Listen to how introspective that is. I'm just like, oh shit, what have I
How
done?
old's this kid
Like
again?
7.
Oh my gosh.
My 7-year-old's really, really smart. Like he like tested like off the charts for being intelligent. He's just a really keen kid. He's very smart. We study a lot though, so he works at it. Again, like being good at anything. How long did that guy practice that accordion to be that awesome? He studies and he reads, and we do extra things like at home, because I think that a lot of education like comes from home too. But he does like other things that are hands-on. Like he learns how to grow a garden, learns where his food comes from, learns where vegetables come from. Or I teach him about like I teach both the kids like about composting or something, like learn where their soil comes from and this is how it's made. You can use eggshells and all this stuff from the kitchen and you can make dirt out of it. Check it out. Check out what worms do. So there's like lots to learn. So I think that's why like the kids aren't hurting in the education department around here.
For sure. For
My
sure.
dad and my mom were very like outside, hands-on, like hippie parents like that. So like we are big time too. Big time conventional school, but big time like out school too, like outdoor school, what I call unschool.
All right. So we've made it through. You've done some music, you've been in some bands and stuff.
Yes.
And then I think in your early 20s, you became like a dental assistant for a little minute there. What was going on with that?
Yes. I don't know. I like lost my mind. I wanted to do something healthcare. And I was like, let's see. What am I afraid of most? The dentist. How am I going to conquer this fear? Hmm. You know what? I'm just going to become a dental
Yeah, you
assistant.
got to learn the
So
enemy
at
from
that
the
time,
inside, right?
I needed to know. I wanted to know everything that went on. So this was like a passion for me. So I went, did it, aced it, got big, like I was the valedictorian of my class. I won like awards. I got grants and all that stuff for doing like well in class. Again, studied my butt off, read my butt off, worked my butt off, finished, did that for 15 years. And then got into mostly children's dentistry and a lot of like sedation dentistry patients that are able to come to the dentist, but just really too afraid to be there.
Right.
People like me,
Hmm.
people like me, people that just want to be drugged and knocked the fuck out. Just do what you need to do. I don't want to know about it though. Okay. Just give me the date rape drug and give me a filling.
Oh
Like,
my
let's
God.
go. They don't, they don't really do that. No one gives you Rufinol at the dentist, but like they can give you, there are enough levels of sedation to just being mildly anxious to like going all the way out to sleep. So it depends what your level of comfort is and depends how scared you are of the dentist. So I worked mostly like in an OR. And just after all those years of like blood and gore, I think after a while I just came just like desensitized to it. A lot of it was like people that were really scared all the time and people that were anxious all the time and kids that were really scared. And I started, as I had kids, I started taking that like feeling kind of like home with me. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I don't like this. And when my first marriage ended, um, like Rob is my second partner, like second husband. We're not legally married. That's why I always say partner because I don't know what to call it. I'm like, we're not legally married, but we're married in our hearts. Just like I have funerals for people in my hearts. I have funerals for people in my heart every day. Like, but we're married in our hearts.
Okay.
So this is the way I
So
think
many
about it.
layers to the onion that is Tanya. All right.
Totally. Oh, but no, but after like my first marriage ended, Rob and I got together and everything. And after I had my daughter and everything like that, he was like, I don't think it's great for you to, have blood and spit flying at you all day. Like if you want to stay home, and work on your music and, those kinds of things, like you can if you want. Is that something that you want to be in? And he's like, I don't want to take your like freedom away from you. Or like, I'm like, absolutely, yes. I love being like I love being a stay-at-home mom. Like it has its challenges. It's a million jobs in one. Yeah, I could send my kids to daycare, like whatever, but I have the ability to work and stay at home, which is super cool.
Hmm.
And I have that flexibility. I work mostly, like I say, at night, like after the kids are going to bed, because I can't be swearing up a storm on the podcast. And there's a lot of content that I research that they can't see, for instance. Even when I have earbuds in, I don't want them seeing like the visual or
Hmm.
anything like that. I'm just like, some of it's pretty like something that I'm working on this week is about a really bad cult in Canada. And I didn't even know about that this cult existed. And it was a cult that like happened in Quebec. And so I'm doing research for that, but this is something they cannot see. It's so inappropriate. So it kind of mushroomed into staying at home and being a mom, and it's like, oh god, I need something to do. I can't just sit here and play piano all the time and just raise kids and just like have the Partridge Family. Like what am I going to do? Like what else can I do to fulfill this like creative need? Because I still need to do this. I need to do something. I need to work. This is making me crazy. So I started doing voiceover for a lot of Rob's series because he was like, your voice is great, have you thought about doing voiceover? I'm like, well, I've done some voiceover before. He's like, why don't you do some voiceover for me? I'm like, oh, I don't want to. And he's like, come on, just do it. And then the broadcasters or the network that he was working with liked a female voice, and I think they liked the duality over like a female voice over some like nerddom sort of action figure sort of pop culture stuff.
Hmm.
And they kind of picked it up, and I just kept going with the voiceover stuff. And so now I'm doing like audio books and certain things like that I'm kind of interested and excited to do.
That's cool.
some
I was
scary
poking around and
audiobooks.
I heard you do some of your voice acting stuff here and there. And it's, I mean, I was going to say you're a natural, but it's probably something you had to work at a little bit, right? So
It's definitely like something you have to work at. I thought I could just like sit down and read. I'm like, nope. I'm like, just nope. It's not gonna be like that. They're like, could you do it more raspy? Could you do it more like sexy? Could you do it more like an owl? Like it's like, sure, who? Like what? Who? What? Like there's you get the weirdest like direction. Like Rob's easy to like work for when I'm doing. He'll be like, oh, do it like this, and he's great to give direction. But I've worked with certain people before, like directors that are like really funny, and the way that they'll try to direct you into doing it, it's just I'm like, how are you describing it like this? Like it's so funny. Do it more like this. I'm like, you could have described that 100 different ways, but you had to say it like that and it had to be funny. And then like I have like a lot, like it's a fun job too, because like I have like my outtakes are terrible and I edit them all out obviously before I send them to a client because there's swearing and sneezing and like snorting and being silly. Like I had to do something about a character and then his name was he rode on a winged steed, but I couldn't stop saying Wicked Steve. So I kept going Wicked Steve like Borat like that on the take, and I did it like 50 times, and I just couldn't stop saying Wicked Steve. I couldn't get the stupid take, so at times it's fucking frustrating, but it's a fun job. It's a really fun job. I don't think I could have picked anything more perfect because I once had a boss in dentistry right before I quit dentistry. She was like, Tanya, you know what? You need to have a job that suits you a little bit better. Because I left dentistry and she was pissed because I was doing like 10 people's jobs for one person's salary. So of course she was pissed that I left. I was good at what I did. So I left to do the mom thing because I'm like, I don't want someone else to raise my kids. Tanya, you need a job where all you do is talk and you just get paid for talking. So I was just like, okay.
Yeah,
and
great
so,
idea.
Thank you. Thank you for that idea. I'm not going to take this as a criticism. I'm going to put that in my back pocket. And then you're going to put this in your pipe and smoke it, lady. Now she probably watches my podcast. I know she follows me on Instagram. A dragon lady.
Oh my gosh. So I've done some education stuff for LinkedIn Learning. Like I'm one of their authors. And I remember when I was first in the studio, they were like, all right, so most of this content, people are just going to be hearing your voice. They don't see your face, right? And so you're emoting, you're giving a lot to people. And I talk with my hands a lot, you'd think I was Italian.
Yeah.
But they're like, so there's none of that. So you got to do it all with your voice. And I would try it. And then say, okay, now do that times 2. And I would do it. And they'd say, okay, now double that. It's like,
too
just
much.
they basically said, keep going until you feel like a complete moron. And then you're almost there.
Yeah. It's like, you almost have to feel really like stupid and out of place and silly. And then you got to really like, if you can't get out of your comfort zone, you're not going to be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you got to get uncomfortable.
That was me just doing like technical material for people to learn.
That's
on.
awesome.
I can't even imagine the levels you have to like take yourself to if you're going to be doing like animated kids stuff. You got to really be
animated kids stuff. That's fun because I'm goofy, like just naturally really goofy. But it's like when I'm doing like travel commercials, like things like Jamaica, like those things are like the things where I'm laughing my ass off in between takes. Have you traveled? Travel. And ignite your senses, just like things like that, or like a holiday commercial or something like that. Like those are really, it's like, we know that you love this holiday, and it'll be like the stupidest gift ever, but you still have to do the voiceover for it. It's like, your kids are gonna fucking hate this. Make your kids miserable this season. Like it's horrible.
Oh my gosh! Like when I'm recording
Sometimes
my
I
stuff,
feel bad.
I do a lot of it at home. So they teach you this phrase that if you screw up, you just say rephrase. Wait a beat, and then you keep going. So I
do it at home too. Same.
So many rephrases. And like after like a week of recording, one time I was at home with my wife and I said something, and then I said rephrase, and then I was like, oh my god, like my brain is broken.
Oh, it gets so ingrained in you.
Yes, it becomes like automatic and part of your nature. But I leave all of the swearing, all of the everything, because it gets frustrating. You say the same line 10 times and it just will not come out. Or it's like a really long one in sentence and you get to the very second to last word and you brick it. And like, not again. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes, like when it's a long one like that, I'm not gonna lie, I do something that I call chunky monkey. I chunk it up and then I just edit it all together so it
Oh my
sounds like it was
gosh.
all at the same time. I'm like, fuck this paragraph. I'm not doing this shit. I'm like, I've been working on this for an hour. Fuck this paragraph. So I chunk it
Uh,
up. I do chunky monkey, and it's like one of like the learning like fundamentals that was like in one of my kids' classes. They chunk up like letters and words to put them together and then put them together. So I started doing chunky monkey with
oh.
some of my ad copy, and it works great.
I've before rewritten because like I write all of the content. So I've been like, you
Sure.
know what? Forget it. And I'll just rewrite the sentence. Like after like
Yeah,
5 minutes
make
of
it
trying
so
to
it
record.
flows for you.
Forget it. Forget it. I'm done with this. Let's rewrite this. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, every now and then my editor would cut out a little snippet and send that to me that they thought was particularly funny. So yeah, those are always enjoyable. And also I had one where like I had just had like a stomach virus or something. And so I kept burping. Like it was like I was trying not to, but it kept happening. They're like, could you please never do this again? I was like trying to like explain, like, I'm so sorry. You know, I was like,
Like I'm working here, but I'm
it's a,
just getting over a stomach virus.
yeah, it's like a tight timeline. I got to get this to you guys. And she's like, oh,
Like
forgive
they
me.
want it delivered. Like, do you want it delivered or not? I'm trying
Right.
to edit out the burps. Well, I know that's like, a bitch. Like even when I'm doing my podcast too, I'm like, why did I choose Coca-Cola as my drink of choice today? I'm just like, blah, blah, through the podcast. I'm just like, awesome. I'm just like, pretty soon it's gonna be like farting and scratching your crotch, like the podcast. Like that's what I feel like it should be. Like after all those burps, I
Uh,
feel just like it's just like it's just a boys' club. Like
it's all been leading up to this. I really don't
big
edit
time.
these things. I just chop the beginning and the end off. Whatever's in there is in there. So
I don't edit much either unless I really screw up saying something and I'm like blah, 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 blah. Oh, edit that out. But sometimes I just leave it in because it's silly.
yeah, yeah, I like it. I like it being real. I like the weird stuff. I like hearing the
It's great
behind the
to
scenes.
be natural. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
it's the like having like an organic podcast is always like one of those things like should I do it or should I not? It's like do it, man. Like don't edit it out. Don't make it fake because the best podcast I think in my opinion, even like the best songs, the best anything that you're creating is something that you're not going to edit and not censoring yourself or anything like that. You're just letting it all hang out
yeah, yeah. I mean, we do enough
to a
censoring
point.
ourselves from day to day,
Yes,
like we're just walking through life. This is like
absolutely.
kind of like a little space where I don't necessarily have to do that.
Exactly. It's your niche corner where you can just be you and you can just be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, be bizarre, be weird.
Absolutely. Keep it weird, man. That's why I always say keep it weird. I have my own little curated corner on the internet of weirdness.
But it's awesome, curated
Thank
corner.
you.
It's very infectious. Like your energy is like so infectious.
Thank
I
you.
really dig it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I always feel peppy after one of
Viral.
yours.
Like,
Maybe I mean I feel peppy. Maybe like kicking down a door or punching somebody in the face. No, it's I get a lot of yeah. It's just it's fun to listen to, and
oh, I
you
watched.
cover all kinds of random subject matter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will see and do and cover anything. I think one of the shows I'm going to be talking about doing some extreme things because I watched the new Jackass movie not too long ago. Oh, Christ. They're not as young as they used to be. I'm not as
Oh
young as I used
no.
to be, but I want to kind of talk about, what did you used to do with your friends that was kind of jackassy? Because I remember the shit I did with my friends, and it was some dumb shit,
Oh,
like
yeah, we did some dumb
breakneck
stuff.
shit.
Yeah.
Oh, really dumb. Like I've done really dumb things. Like and I never want my kids to do them. I never want my kids to see them. I never want my kids to know about them. But like the newest Jackass movie, I don't have you seen it?
No, no, I haven't.
Whew, there's just a lot of genitalia. Just a lot of male genitalia. I'm just like, what is this? I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I was not expecting as much, and it's not as much like hurt to that area. I was just like, I thought you guys had moved away from them. But I'm like, I guess you guys are all done having kids, whatever. I'm like, whatever.
Oh my gosh,
It
I
wasn't
saw that
happening to like the younger guys.
it's coming back to MTV. They're bringing back new episodes and everything.
What? Really? Well,
Yeah,
with how the movie was, I'm not surprised. And they kind of have like new, like young bucks that they're kind of like
yeah, yeah,
bringing into the program, right? Like new jackasses or
yeah.
whatever they're calling them.
New
New
Jackass
jackasses.
Eye. Like, what's the plural? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
jackass high. They're like a samurai of jackasses.
Yeah.
They have their own elite sect of doing dumb shit and trying not to break every bone simultaneously in their body.
Stuff like that always makes me wonder, like those guys, or, even you, like what you did as a kid with your podcast, like as your kids grow up, eventually they're going to like see that stuff. And
I want to like
this whole
remove it off
image,
YouTube so they never see it.
this whole image they have of you is suddenly going to be, I'm not going to say shattered, but, it's going to, it's going to change for sure.
They're going to have questions. Like they're going to have questions, like big time questions. Like there's like a kitty thing in the kitchen. Like it has like the record with like every member that's ever been in kitty on it. And they'll be like, wow, mom, like you look so different. I'm just like, yeah. They'll see a picture of me with like blonde hair or something when I'm young, or like a headbanging picture or something. That's about all they've like seen. The kids they don't know. And they don't see. It's not that they see like the rocking side of me when I'm like playing guitar and like singing Raffi songs or something, but they don't see me like banging my head to metal. They hear like me listening to like Motley Crue or Kiss or even like Kitty, or like their favorite thing to do is, oh my God, this is horrible. And this is like what I call this is what I call the party clown. This is where my kids treat me like a party clown. And all they want to do is treat me like a party favor and pass me around. So, when you like, if someone ever brings you to a party and they treat you like the favor. So when I was younger, it'd be like, oh, hey, this is Tanya. She used to be in Kitty. And that was like the thing. So I always like, oh man, don't treat me like a fucking party clown. That's not cool. Don't treat me like a party favor. So what their favorite thing to do is, Alexa, play Brackish all day. And they chase me around the house singing it, laughing like it's the funniest thing ever. So that ghost has come to haunt me a lot.
We'll continue to. And don't think that I didn't pull that song up before this and relive my high school years there just momentarily. And I was like,
you like had that riff like straight in your head.
Yeah, bro. Like it immediately came back the second you said Brackish. Dude. I was like, yeah, it was playing it. My goodness.
And that's what I've like lived with my whole life. That riff just following me around everywhere I go. I'm like, I didn't play that riff. I played the bass.
Yeah. Do you feel like does that bother you? Because I mean, it sounds like everybody's putting that label on you. Like they're always going to think of you as that first, like when you're introduced or blah, blah, blah.
And I think that like, it doesn't bother me anymore. There was a time where it did bother me, but I think I've just like come to like, I've just put it to bed. Like they're going to think of that first because that's on the internet first. That was more prominent, like kind of first. If there's something that's bigger than that, then maybe they'll see that, first. But people are going to see that first. And it doesn't like bother me at all. Like the girls in Kitty and myself and everyone who's been in Kitty, we all have like super good relationships. So cool. Being aligned with Kitty, that doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think it's great. We're all like kind of like a one big weird dysfunctional family.
Well,
it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
That phrase insinuates that there is such thing as a functional family. So
I think there is. Like,
really?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's not. Like, I'm pretty sure there's not. You just find a way to function.
Yeah, you make it work. I get it.
Exactly. We're all just winging it.
That's cool. All right. Well, I tell you what, we are getting pretty close to time, and I want to be super respectful of your time. You were kind enough to give me so much of this, and I truly, like I say this sometimes, but I truly appreciate it. Like to me, that's the greatest gift. Like if somebody's going to give me their time, that's like the highest honor.
Time is a huge gift. Same. Absolutely,
thank you so
man.
Much.
Like,
yeah. Thank you
thank you, Greg, for having me on. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we mentioned the podcast, which is 21st Century Rocker Mom. If you want people to interact with you or find you in some way, I mean, obviously they need to go and listen to your podcast like right now. I'm going to tell them at the head, you just stop, go listen to that. And then if you have time, come back and watch this. But how else would you have people interact? Like, what's your favorite way?
I love Instagram. Instagram is like my jam. I'm always, because it's the easiest thing to operate for me. Instagram, I'm on I'm at like Tanya Candler is like my name on there. But if you search at 21st Century Rocker Mom on Instagram, that's the best way to find me there. I'm always on Instagram. You can find me if you want to watch the podcast instead of listening to the podcast. You can always watch it because I'm always putting clips up on my Instagram. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and it's just Tanya Candler channel. I'm on Twitter, just at Tanya Candler. If you want to see some weirdness, I don't know if you do or not, I'm at 21st Century Rocker Mom on TikTok, just being odd. Those videos are not any rhyme or reason. That one's just for the kids.
I was doing a little scrolling through, and I found one with you, I think with like the end of a bass guitar in your mouth. I was like, okay, so.
Oh, it was an entire ukulele head.
Is that what that
Because
was?
yeah, because my kids saw Billie Eilish put an entire ukulele head in her mouth, and they're like, "Mom, do you think that you could do that?" I was like, "Heck yeah!" So I was just like, ah, and I did it. And then someone commented, "You didn't put the tuning pegs in your mouth." I was like, so I put them in. I was just like, "What, bro?" And then I replied to him like with a video comment.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, such a silly smart ass. I'm like, this is why my kids aren't allowed on the internet, like unless it's school.
Whew. Wild. All right.
Find me in
Well,
some creepy ass corner.
there's as much Tanya out on the internet as you can handle. So there's plenty of ways to interact with you and good stuff like that. And again,
Sure.
thank you so much. You are absolutely an open book, and I couldn't ask anything else. So thank you very much. I'm gonna click stop on
Well,
all this
thank you for
stuff.
having me.